Those who haven't joined us on Talking Thursdays before, it's a series where we have open, insightful conversations with some of the most exciting creatives from around the world that are shaping the industry both now, but also for the future. So for those who haven't joined these sessions before and have only seen the ones pre-recorded on YouTube, the session is split into two sections. First will be a wonderful talk that Morgan's going to give us, which will take roughly half an hour, right? Something like that, roughly half an hour. And then the second part of it's going to be kind of a Q&A. Now, there's some questions that I've prepared. And also, I really welcome everybody in the audience. If you do have any questions, please just drop them directly into the chat, and I'll do my very best to get through them all at the end. Hope everyone understands. Cool. So, as mentioned tonight, I'm joined by the very wonderful Morgan, a graphic designer who's based out in New York. We first met when I visited Collins a couple of years back, which was intense. But since then, followed her work with a huge amount of interest, as I'm sure a lot of you have. So Morgan, again, great to have you here. And for those who may not be familiar with your work, albeit I have a feeling these are all your fans, please introduce yourself. And again, welcome to Talking Thursdays.
Yeah, I'm happy to. Thank you for having me. I'm a big fan already, so I just feel honored to be able to hang today. And for those of you who don't know me, you'll know me quite well by the end of this 30 minutes. I'm going to take you on a journey first through my childhood. My name is Morgan Light. I was born in Arizona, but later in life, I moved to Florida. And I was raised in a town called Howey in the Hills. This is the Howey Mansion, which is where the founder of the town lived. And in true Florida fashion, he was buried outside in this mausoleum. So if you can't already tell, I was living in some real swamp land. From day one, I knew that I wanted to be anywhere but Howey in the Hills. And where I really wanted to be was New York, more than you could ever imagine.
So yeah, this is now my room. Are you ready to see the ugly room? Not my favorite either, but we have to live with it.
In case you can't understand my 9-year-old mumbling there, but I said, yep, this is my ugly room. Not my favorite either, but I guess I have to live with it. I was very sassy. Sorry, Mom. But I guess from the very beginning, I had this very strong point of view. And in this video, I'm super excited because my parents had just given me budget to create my new bedroom, which was maybe my first commission. My childhood bedroom was essentially my first design assignment. I would sit for hours and pick out different furniture based on different themes and vibes. And for some really strange reason, I would record it all with my mom's camcorder. I don't know why I did that. I think I was watching a lot of HGTV at the time. But my dad and I spent 2 months working so that my bedroom would look and feel like I was really in New York City. So that brick wall you see in the background of this clip is completely fake. We installed it so that it would feel more industrial. Our new construction home suddenly could feel like a New York City loft. I even had this dupe Noguchi lantern before we even knew who Noguchi was. And something else really cool, my friends could autograph this brick wall and leave me notes with their metallic Sharpies. These are my friends sitting on the futon that my dad bought me. He's from New Jersey and experienced New York City in the 80s, so he's got some edge. He said, if you want to live in New York, you got to get used to sleeping on a couch. So I started my training here. So in case you can't tell, I was very committed to moving to New York. And that futon I got when I was 10, my parents made me sleep on every single night until I was 18. So I learned a lot about resilience. Fast forward, I'm in high school and I'm working at a photography and framing shop in town. And this led to me assisting on launches for NASA with photographer Jeffrey Phillips. I was 15 years old, taking photos of space shuttles with very, very expensive phase one cameras. And I remember the reverb of the launch was so strong that we would have to lay on this roof and hold the tripod to keep it from shaking off the side of the building. And just to zoom in, that's my school bag. Launches typically took place early in the morning, so I could still make it to class after. One day, one of my colleagues at All About Images, this Photoshop, said, hey, if you like photography, you should apply to the School of Visual Arts in New York. And I did. And somehow I got in. I didn't apply anywhere else. It was just New York or nothing for me. And now I had done it. I was in New York in art school, but I was really struggling. I was working retail at night with class all day. I didn't know how to draw. I didn't know how to paint. I didn't know how to sculpt. And I didn't really know how I even got there in the first place. And this feeling lasted for about a year, almost 2 years, before New York started doing its New York thing. And something really unbelievable happened, which is that I got discovered. I got this LinkedIn message from somebody recruiting for a fashion and e-commerce brand. And it happened to be from this person, Blake Lively. So I did what any girl would do, and I seized the moment. I dropped out of school. I took this full-time job as a design assistant, except spoiler alert, it's a tiny company. There's no designer to assist. And it was really fun. I went to red carpet movie premieres. I went to photo shoots. And most importantly, I baked cookies in the Blakery with Blake Lively, and she posted about it on Instagram. Life was incredibly strange and also really cool and fun. Did I know what I was doing? Absolutely not. It all blew up in my face. It only lasted a year. So flash forward again, it's been a year since I dropped out, and I've now re-enrolled at the School of Visual Arts, SVA, in New York City. And this time around, I was doing slightly better. I was still working nights, retail, anthropology, Madewell, etc. But school was coming ever so slightly easier to me after having worked in, the field for a year. But in school, I did realize something. I realized that I missed what I had with Blake. There had been this sense of possibility and openness and excitement and autonomy and the insanity that made me feel like I was actually making something bigger than myself. I think that what I realized I missed most was that chaos. So I took 13 internships over the next few years and had a bunch of freelance jobs. I worked in tech, I worked in publishing, magazines, book covers, and branding studios, both large and small. I realized during this time that clients come to us unsure of what their futures will look like, and together we find a way through it. And hopefully we create something much bigger out of that. I take on other brands' chaos and I treat it as my own. I love to do it. Ask my therapist. So I talked about having a million jobs, and I thought maybe I'd break down a few of these experiences for the designers in the group in greater detail. This was my very first job that I got when I moved to New York City, and it was doing e-commerce photography for a now defunct site. Basically, everything had to be shot on white the exact same way every time. Not a ton of room for insane creativity. After that, I ended up interning at Good Housekeeping magazine, which is a Hearst publication. I remember showing up to Hearst and Laverne Cox was in the lobby, and I was like, wow, this feels like New York. But I remember also someone asked me what department I was in, and I said editorial, because this is an editorial design job. And I ended up writing articles for the rest of the day. I was very green. I had no business being there. From there, I had my Blake Lively moment working on her e-com site, Preserved. I tried UI and UX design. I designed events. I worked at my first design studio, and this experience was really important to me because it was just the founder and I learned so much from her. Shouts out Samantha. I got to go to client meetings and really started to understand how the business of design works. I published my first book cover, learned about art direction, did my first branding project, Soup to Nuts, which you'll see in a minute. More branding here. And then I went in-house with the founder of Mother Design to start a design team for a tech company. And that was my first time being able to like start something new in a different context, right? Like a place that maybe doesn't understand the value of design quite yet. So that was really fun. I realized I love branding and packaging and worked and interned and freelanced at a bunch of different studios on a ton of projects. And then of course, right before the pandemic, I moved to California for Apple and got stuck in Sunnyvale. That's a story for another day, but it was a great place to get stuck and I loved it. Alas, I found myself here at Collins where I still work today. And I'm super excited because a project I've been working on for 2.5 years at Collins is finally rolling out on shelves. Could not be more excited. It would take up the rest of our time if I were to share every bit of it with you right now. So I'll give you a sneak peek.
On the design team for Up and Up is doing an amazing job. Look at this. Look at how freaking cute they are. Ugly, stinky, nasty old people. Cute. I mean, I just want it. I just want all of it. Look at this. I want it. I don't need it, but I want it. I don't need it, but I want it.
Okay, I didn't say that, you know. So I spent the last 2.5 years redesigning Up and Up with some of my favorite teammates ever. There were lots of them. This is a 2.5-year long project that spanned 2,000 SKUs. So huge team, and shouts out to everyone. And what's really special to me about being able to work on Target, Target in my hometown is where all the bougie people shopped. Like we were lucky if we got to go back to school shopping at Target. When our town got a Target, it was a game changer. And when there was a Starbucks put into that Target, like dead. So for me, working on Target has really just been this full circle moment. It's where I went to go buy things to redecorate my New York City room and dreamed of doing what I do now. And the things I designed here now live on shelf in my hometown. I think that's pretty cool. I'm getting to get into that first internship or the first design gig at Mother Design Project is still one of my favorites today. So among those many internships, I got to work on Callen-Lorde. So this is Callen-Lorde. Callen-Lorde is an LGBTQ+ public health center that's located in New York City. And Callen-Lorde was founded by Michael Callen and Audre Lorde, who are both artists and activists during the AIDS movement. Their really rich history began during an awful, awful time, which is during the AIDS crisis in New York in the 80s. And we wanted to connect Callen-Lorde, the health center, more closely to its history. So we looked for typographic cues that we could pull from some of the protest signage from ACT UP. This is the word mark that we created for Callen-Lorde. And then we used every color of the rainbow, but skewed each color ever so slightly. So Callen-Lorde had its own edge. We used triple Gothic for both the word mark and the system. So it was really easy for them. So this organization has like 300 nurses, doctors, coordinators, assistants, but they do not have graphic designers on staff. We needed the system to be incredibly easy for them to implement over time. So we made building a layout as simple as we possibly could. Always anchor the logo to the top or to the bottom and use the typeface and go crazy. So there's really not a ton of rules. It's incredibly flexible. And type is a really powerful tool for any organization, but for Callen-Lorde, it gave the team a chance to imbue personality. There's so much personality walking around the halls of Callen-Lorde, so much optimism and hope, and a lot of really fun activities, fundraisers, events that they needed to create posters and signage for. We also created a library of different glyphs and icons that they could use, that they could also use for moments like this in line with typography, or thinking back to their roots, maybe on something like picket signage. One other thing that happened during this project that I was really excited about is we got to design some signage for their new hospital. This is the first of their new locations that they would ever have been able to create. So it was really fun to be able to see how these icons could then translate to signage, etc. This, even though it was created at like the beginning of my many design roles, is still one of my favorite projects, and shouts out to the team that made it happen at Mother Design. In case you can't tell, I love packaging on my Instagram, etc. I post about it a lot, and I've been working on it a lot with Collins on Up and Up. But more recently, I worked on this project with my friends at AIGA. So AIGA is herbal tea. This is tea. This is tea. This is tea, and this is tea. So how do you make a tea brand stand out? It's probably not by doing more of that. Instead, I went and looked at the beginnings of ancient herbal medicine, and I found the calligraphy in these inscriptions to be absolutely brilliant. And I thought the engravings were also really powerful. So took those things, and it started to inspire the word mark and treatment for AIGA. I found a typeface that I really loved called Da Vinci, and I worked with the type designer, Virgil Flores, to craft the ligatures in this word mark. This RH connection was incredibly challenging, but it was really important to me that the word felt like it was literally could come from the hand and didn't have any breakpoints. AIGA's vision aligned really nicely with humanity's like fascination for space, as this like ultimate frontier for progress and for discovery. So we created a bunch of images of this can, the beverage, floating through space for launch. And because we had so much fun making things like this, we created a film. We also created illustrations for key ingredients. You know, I didn't get into SVA for illustration, so this was challenging. But the gestures in the leaves were made to mimic the gestures of our calligraphic word mark. In this project, I also, in every personal project that I take on, I really try to come out with something new that I've learned, or I think it's really exciting for me to try to learn something new, whether it be a new program or to create something that maybe hasn't been created or existed yet. So for this project, I went on a journey to learn Cinema 4D, which was really fun. I rendered this and this guy that you saw earlier as well, after many months of working and tutoring with my friend Saxon Campbell. On the website, we created this garden, and we used Chrome for two reasons. One is because it further imbued that like futuristic feel, but also it meant that we could treat imagery with a uniform style, regardless of where it came from. And that's really important to a small company of one with no graphic designers. And finally, I got to work with Ryan Duffin and Julia Rose to bring some imagery to life. I always jump at any opportunity to art direct, and I think it's a designer's superpower to be able to not only design things, but then imagine how it exists or build a world around it. It kind of calls back to what I loved in high school, right? Like doing photography for rocket launches. I still get to do some of that in my day-to-day now. Overall, I feel like I really loved working on AIGA because I got to imagine something bigger, like a world that I could live in, just like the one I had imagined for myself. Shouts out to the team that made this happen, from type to 3D, sound design even, my first time working with the sound designer, and photography. So I'll leave you with this. Everything is make it what you want it to be. You can build a fantasy world. You can launch rockets to other worlds, or you can live in your own world, like I did. Design the world you want for yourself. And I'll sign off here.
Wow, I'm pretty good at this, I guess.